Shalom, and welcome back to B'nai Noach Academy, Thoughts on the Torah. Please remember to hit the like button, to subscribe, and most importantly, to share this wisdom and inspiration with friends and family. If you look at the book of Exodus, chapter 28, verses 3, 4, and on, it describes the garments, the vestments, the holy vestments that they prepared and designed for the priests. And remember, we spoke about it, that the priests were obligated. It was totally imperative to wear these garments when they were officiating, when they were doing the service in the Holy Temple. Now, here's a question. What happened with these garments in the event that they became very soiled, that is, they became stained, or perhaps if there was a tear or a pull, did they fix them? Did they have like a little shop, like a sewing shop, where they had tailors who would fix these garments or reweave them and, launder them and, remove the stains? Well, the Talmud tells us that the answer to that question is no. And the Talmud uses the reasoning, the rationale of, quote, there is no poverty in the place of riches, meaning that in the place of riches, when you're talking about attitude in a place which is the kingly palace, in this case, the King of Kings palace, you don't have a mindset of poverty where you're going to start to fix the uniforms, start to re-sew them, start to, fix the tears and patch them up. That is just not acceptable. That's not appropriate. What did they do with them? Well, of course, the Torah does command us not to be wasteful and not to just discard useful things. So obviously, they were repurposed for different things. One good classical example is that they would use the materials to procure wicks. Remember, in the menorah, in the candelabra, there were these thick wicks. And then for other purposes where they needed to have wicks, for example, on the festival of Sukkot, Festival of the Huts, when they would light these big massive torches to light up the courtyard for the festivities, then they would use from the material from these garments to create these wicks. But the garment itself was no longer used as part of the uniform for the service. And this perhaps can teach us a very, very important lesson in life. Of course, we're not supposed to be wasteful, and we're not supposed to be haughty and always, in pursuit of luxury. We're supposed to live a normal, comfortable life. But at the same time, God is giving us a message here. Don't have a poor man's mindset. Don't think in a poor manner. Of course, if a garment is somewhat torn and it could be fixed and it's going to still look good, that's fine. But don't wear a garment which is torn, which is just unrespectable, even if you fixed it, but it still looks like a poor man's look. Don't set yourself in that state of mind. Of course, if you have nothing better, you should wear it. But the idea is, try to always think a little richer. Try to think a little broader. Try to present yourself as, quote, being in the king's palace. And what comes to mind is, they say a story that happened way back in Europe. They have this little salty fish. It's called herring. These herring fish that typically the poor people would eat it because they couldn't afford to have, enough protein. They couldn't afford to eat, a piece of fish every day, or certainly not meat. And they have little tiny a piece of salty fish is very strong in flavor. And that's what they would eat. And, that kind of became part of the staple of their diet. 1 or 2 pieces was enough for the day to give you that taste of protein in your mouth. Well, this poor man, he's in the forest one day, chopping some wood for his fireplace, and he comes upon a treasure. And instantaneously, he became very, very rich, as they say, filthy rich. So when they're interviewing him, they asked him, so what are you going to do now that you're such a rich man? You went from total rags to riches. He says, well, now I can eat as much herring as I want. I'm not going to limit myself to 1 or 2 pieces a day. Obviously, he couldn't get the poor man's thinking out of his mind. He was thinking like a poor man, even though he now was a rich man. So that's what the message is. live, of course, within your means and do not be wasteful, but at the same time, have a broader approach, have a rich man's type of thinking when it comes to, the stuff, the clothing, the food, the housing, whatever it is that God gives us.